It's now time to discuss jobs to avoid. So we were talking about in our last lesson picking the right jobs, but there's sort of the opposite end of that. Let's look for the red flags. So initially a job might look great or a project might look great, whether you're looking for it on Upwork or Freelancer or one of the other freelance websites. But keep your eyes open for red flags and things that may make it not such a good job. We're going to go through a couple of examples. First, I want to take you through the criteria that we want to pay attention to. Then we'll have a look at a couple of examples of what I consider jobs to avoid. And as we go through this, my area is in the writing and sales, marketing, different things like that. But you could be, of course, a programmer. You could be an author that has nothing to do, like fiction author. You could be doing graphic design. And so I don't mean to not touch on your particular markets. I'm just trying to give you examples that I'm the most familiar with. But keep in mind, these are all principles for any type of market that you're in. Okay, so hope that makes sense. Jobs to avoid. I think you should almost generally always avoid those looking to pay for entry level. Unless you're willing and happy to work for $3 or $4 or $5 an hour, I'd avoid those jobs. Not just because they're low paying. I worry about the psychology of the person that's coming to these freelance sites wanting to pay so little. And sometimes those people can have unreasonable expectations. Not everyone, someone might have very reasonable expectations, but I just worry about that. I'm not personally interested, so I think you should avoid it unless, again, that is what you're looking to do. So just proceed with caution. A low budget amount. So meaning, I don't mean that it's a low hourly rate, but it could be, I want you to do all this work for $60. And you're like, oh my goodness, So it effectively ends up being a low hourly rate because you know how much time it's going to take. Again, I worry about people that have that psychology. There are some people that have no clue how much work something can take, and they think you come to these internet sites and people basically do the work for nothing. And anyway, not good. And this ties right into what I was just talking about, unreasonable expectations. They list out 10 things and they say, I'm going to pay you $70 for this. Very unprofessional job description write-up. I always get annoyed at people that say, looking for a marketing rock star. It just, that might be more of a pet peeve, but the idea of, if someone's having trouble spelling, if someone hasn't even taken the time to proofread their own project, proceed with caution on those. Not saying it would never be. I mean, I've made plenty of spelling mistakes myself, so I'm not suggesting everyone needs to be perfect, but just take it with a grain of salt and pay attention to those that are doing very unprofessional job description write-ups. Occasionally, you'll see a job description that's literally like one sentence. You got to wonder how serious that person is about finding and hiring someone if they're not even willing to put more than a sentence into the job description. If you don't match most of their preferred qualifications, be careful about overreaching. I've encouraged you to be aggressive and assertive and have confidence in yourself, but don't go after jobs that you actually believe you'll fail at. Not only is it's going to be bad for everything, and then you're going to end up with a bad rating and a bad feedback possibly, and a big mess. So be careful about that. Questionable client location, ranking, hire rate, total spend, average hourly rate. Look for all of those criteria. We'll see if we can look at that as we go along. When I say questionable client location, let's say there's a country that you have no experience with, you know nothing about. It might be absolutely fine, but you don't really have any experience with people or working with people in that country and expectations, communications, because it is different. So just proceed with caution on that, or maybe even avoid a job like that until you get a little bit more comfortable. Old jobs and projects. Yeah, so I talked about this, I think, in the last lesson. If something's been posted 10 days ago and the person that posted it hasn't looked at that as they've got 20 proposals and they haven't gone back and looked, at what they posted and who's applying for 9 days, that's probably a waste of your time. Okay? And those jobs that have a very high number of proposals. Now, occasionally you're going to need to compete, and you're going to want to compete against very popular projects, and go for it. I'm not discouraging you from doing that, but generally speaking, I'd avoid those types of jobs because there's so much more opportunity out there. And then those where the bid range is extremely low. It may not end up being worth your time if everyone is bidding to do a job for $25, $25 to $50, and you're going to bid, and you would want to bid something like $150. Probably best in general to avoid those jobs. There's exceptions to all of these, but I'm giving you the general rules. Okay, let's look at what I would consider a couple of bad jobs. So here's one called Write a Gaming Novel Similar to Minecraft Diaries. Now, this might be right up my alley. Let's say it was. So the first thing I'm going to notice is, a $50 budget. Okay, that's something to be concerned about, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep looking. Entry level. Okay, so I know they're not looking to pay me very much for my time, so that's now concerning. This needs to be a 7,000 word children's humorous story. I'm like, 7,000 words? That's not short. And, for $50 is what they're thinking about. So that's, is that an unreasonable expectation? In my mind, I think it is. What else do we have here? Oh, take note of this preferred qualifications, because I don't think we've actually talked about it. Some like to have a job success score at least 90. A lot of this ties back, I believe, to your feedback and your scores. But I actually don't, at this point, have a 90% score. Mine's in the 80s. That doesn't mean you shouldn't bid on these jobs. Don't worry, you can still bid on these jobs even though they've got it as a preferred qualification. And rising talent. A rising talent is another something or other that Upwork has. Again, I don't even worry about that, frankly. So what else do we want to look at here? Client location. It's in the U.S. That's fine. I'm used to working in the U.S. How old is this campaign? This was posted 8 days ago. Okay. Now, interesting that it has less than 5 proposals. A good job posted that long ago would normally have like 10, 20, 30 proposals. So that actually might be a little alarming that nobody's bidding on it. And then what's the bid range on this job? Actually, I'm looking at this, and it doesn't even show a bid range, which I think means no one has bid on this job, and understandably so. So you kind of look at every criteria that we went over, and you're like, this is a job I want to avoid. And it might only, once you get used to this, you'll scan this thing in about 10 seconds and be done with it. Let's look at another one. Promote 5 books on social media. That's interesting. Okay, first thing that jumps out at me, $10 budget, really? Entry level? Yikes. Okay, here's something good. The client has a good ranking, so I like that. He spent a total of $89. That's not very exciting. He does hire for every job he posts. He hires about 1 out of every 3. What else do I want to see here? Here's the description. Well, frankly, at this stage, I've already kind of written this one off. Look, he doesn't even, I guess he's got some people have bid. The high bid is $10 and the low bid is $6.25. Okay, I think I've seen enough. This has failed my test, and I'm going to avoid this job. Now, these were 2 pretty extreme cases, like 2 pretty low amounts. Some of these you're going to have to think about a little bit harder. Some of them might match everything you want, but then you get down to the proposals and it says, 50 proposals. Okay, probably a little too late on that one, if that's the case. So, this is how I analyze these jobs. And usually what I'm looking for is the positives, but just as much the negatives to eliminate jobs that I'm looking at. So, okay, hope that made sense. And again, it's a good idea just to go ahead and use this checklist as you're going through jobs and which ones you want to avoid, helping you filter them out. Hopefully this was helpful.